They say silence is empty. It's a void to be filled, an absence of meaning, a social failure. We treat it like a blank space on a canvas, fearing its potential more than valuing its purity. But have you ever noticed how the world feels louder when you're surrounded by people? It's not just the physical noise of chatter and laughter, but the relentless, low-frequency hum of social performance, the pressure to respond, to appear engaged, to manage impressions and navigate the unspoken rules of interaction. And yet, the world becomes completely, profoundly calm when you're finally alone. This is the great paradox of solitude. In the absence of others, the static fades, and a different, more personal frequency becomes audible. The city outside hums, a constant, mechanical lullaby of cars passing like metal blood cells through urban arteries, of lights flickering behind distant windows, each one a silent film of a life you'll never know. It's the world's heartbeat, persistent and indifferent. But inside your room, there's only quiet. Not a dead quiet, but a living, breathing one. No music curated for a mood. No conversation requiring your energy. Just the rhythm of your own breathing, the subtle shift of fabric as you move, the almost imperceptible sound of your own existence. This is the soundtrack of the self. Most people, conditioned to believe that human connection is the only antidote to suffering, would call that loneliness. They would see the empty space and assume a missing piece. But to you, it feels like peace. It feels like the gentle release of a weight you didn't know you were carrying. It feels like coming home to a place that is uniquely and unconditionally yours, where you are not a son, a daughter, a friend, or an employee, but simply, wholly, yourself. The misunderstood peace of solitude. Have you ever felt misunderstood because you enjoy being alone? Have you seen the puzzled look when you decline a noisy party for a quiet evening, interpreted as aloofness or sadness? I have. For a long time, I internalized that narrative. I thought there was something wrong with me, that my comfort in silence, my lack of a constant social craving, meant I was disconnected, distant, or emotionally broken. I was trying to diagnose a feature of my personality as a flaw. But over time, through the very practice of being with myself, I realized something profound. Solitude isn't emptiness, it's awareness. It is the active, engaged state of turning your attention inward, of listening to the whispers of your own mind and heart that are so easily drowned out by the crowd. There's a quiet kind of person, maybe you're one of them, who doesn't just endure stillness, but finds strength in it. Their energy is not drawn from the group, but generated from within and then shared selectively. They don't fear silence. They understand it as a form of communication that needs no words. They comprehend its textures and tones. And psychology shows they're not lonely at all. In fact, they're among the most emotionally intelligent and self-aware people alive, because they have taken the time to study the most complex subject they will ever encounter, themselves. The science of stillness, your brain on solitude. In a world that worships noise, hustle, and constant connection, solitude often seems suspicious, even pathological. We equate being alone with being lonely, and busyness with importance. But science tells another, more compelling story. When you consciously choose to be alone, something powerful and restorative happens in your brain. You shift from a state of external attention, constantly processing the outside world, to a state of inner reflection. This is the mental space where emotions can finally settle, where scattered memories organize themselves into coherent narratives, and where clarity, like clear water, returns after the sediment of the day has been stirred up. Neuroscientists have a name for this, the default mode network, DMN. This is an interconnected system of brain regions that becomes highly active not when we're focused on a task, but when we are at rest, daydreaming, imagining, and reflecting. It's the brain's background processing unit. Engaging the DMN is not a neurological withdrawal. It's integration. It's how we make sense of our experiences and construct our sense of self. As Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the pioneering psychologist who studied the psychology of optimal experience or flow, once observed. Only when a person is able to be alone comfortably can they engage in the highest forms of creativity and consciousness. Solitude, then, is not isolation. It is depth. It is the sacred, fertile space where abstract thoughts take concrete shape, where deep emotional healing begins, and where the soul, no longer performing for an audience, can finally exhale. So maybe the next time someone calls you quiet or distant, you can offer a gentle smile, not of agreement, but of quiet knowledge. Because you know something they have yet to learn. Silence isn't a void to be feared. It's a language, rich with nuance and meaning. And those who speak it fluently aren't hiding from life. They're listening to its most profound layers more deeply than anyone else. Why some minds crave quiet, the psychology of the inner world. To genuinely enjoy being alone is not to reject the world or its people, it is to feel profoundly at home within yourself. You become your own companion. Psychologists make a crucial distinction here, calling this autonomous solitude, time spent alone by active, positive choice, which is fundamentally different from the imposed state of isolation. A 2019 study in the Journal of Positive Psychology found that people who intentionally seek out solitude report significantly higher levels of emotional stability, creativity, and self-understanding. They are not antisocial, they are prosocial on their own terms. They're not avoiding others. They are engaged in the essential process of recharging their psychic batteries through reflection. Developmental psychologist Dr. Kenneth Rubin described this healthy state as constructive aloneness, a state where being by yourself becomes a genuine source of personal growth, insight, and restoration, rather than a hollow experience of emptiness. Because the core difference between solitude and loneliness lies entirely in intention and perception. Loneliness is a state of lack. It says, plaintively, no one is here for me. Solitude is a state of fullness. It says, confidently, I am here for myself. The psychology of calm, emotional regulation and the quiet mind. People who love and utilize solitude often possess a highly developed skill, emotional regulation. This is the ability to manage and respond to emotional experiences without being overwhelmed by them, and to do so without constantly seeking external validation or distraction. Neuroscientists at the University of Rochester discovered that purposeful solitude activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch of our nervous system responsible for rest and digest. This physiological shift lowers cortisol levels, reduces stress, and restores a fundamental sense of calm. In the womb of stillness, the body learns, or relearns, how to feel safe again. This quiet comfort is the outward reflection of a deeper cognitive skill called meta-awareness, the ability to step back and observe your own thoughts and feelings from a slight distance. You learn to notice a thought like, I'm anxious, without immediately becoming that anxiety. You see the storm cloud without letting it rain on you. A 2020 study from the University of Essex reinforced this, finding that solitude strengthens this capacity for reflection and emotional clarity. It provides the mental space necessary to sift through the noise of daily life and helps people realign their actions with their true, core values. In this way, solitude becomes an act of integration. Not a retreat from life, but a conscious return to oneself. When silence becomes sanctuary, the roots of a quiet nature. For many who love being alone, this peace didn't come by accident. It wasn't merely a preference, it grew out of necessity, a coping mechanism that blossomed into a strength. Some of us learned early, perhaps in environments filled with conflict, unpredictability, or conditional love, that calm was not something to be found in the external world, but something to be cultivated in the quiet, internal spaces. When the outside is chaotic, the inside becomes your fortress. In those places, silence becomes more than just quiet, it becomes sanctuary. Psychologists call the ability to create this sanctuary self-regulation, the nervous system's hard-won way of saying, stop. Let me breathe. Let me find my center again. Research published in Frontiers in Psychology shows that solitude provides a powerful tool for regulating the amygdala, the brain's primitive emotional alarm system that screams, fight, flight, or freeze. Time alone, free from triggers, allows this system to reset, dialing down the background anxiety and bringing a crystalline clarity. That's why problems that felt overwhelming in a crowded room often feel smaller, more manageable, once the world grows quiet and you can hear yourself think. The mirror of the mind, solitude as restoration. Solitude offers more than just safety from external storms, it provides active restoration. In silence, thoughts that were swirling in a frantic dance begin to settle, like dust motes in a sunbeam after a storm has passed. We begin to hear the faint, true voice of ourselves again. This process is tied to interoceptive awareness, the skill of sensing and understanding the internal signals of your own body. It's knowing the subtle difference between when you're tired and when you're sad, when you're peacefully content and when you're merely numb, when you need stimulation and when you genuinely need space. Over time, this deep self-awareness becomes the very foundation of emotional maturity, the capacity to recognize what you are feeling before it controls you, allowing for a choice in how you respond. As psychologist Dr. Esther Buchholz eloquently wrote, "Without solitude, we cannot construct our sense of self. We need it to discover who we are and what we believe, away from the voices and expectations of the world. Solitude is that mirror, the one that reflects not your face, but the essence of who you are beneath the noise, the roles, and the performances. The mind reorganizing itself, the neuroscience of insight. When you are truly alone, your brain is far from shutting down, it is actively reorganizing. It is performing the essential work of connecting disparate emotions, memories, and ideas into a coherent tapestry of meaning." Yale neuroscientists found that periods of solitude are like a workout for the default mode network, strengthening its connections and enhancing its functions of self-reflection, future planning, and creative thinking. That's why your most profound insights often arrive not when you're straining at a problem, but when you're walking alone or staring out a window. Your brain isn't idle, it's integrating. Furthermore, solitude strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the brain's sophisticated command center for executive functions like planning, decision-making, and, crucially, emotional regulation. This is what Dr. Richard Davidson at the University of Wisconsin-Madison discovered through his research. Over time, the regular practice of solitude literally trains the mind to stay steady, focused, and resilient, even when external life feels chaotic and uncertain. The emotional intelligence of stillness, boundaries and empathy. People who are comfortable in solitude often display a remarkable capacity for making autonomous decisions and setting healthy, firm boundaries. They are not detached or cold, they are self-sufficient. Their well-being is not outsourced to the approval of others. This psychological independence springs from an internal locus of control, the deeply held belief that your peace, validation, and sense of worth originate from within, not from the fickle opinions and actions of others. And, perhaps counterintuitively, solitude can make us more empathetic, not less. A 2018 study in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin revealed that solitude increases empathic accuracy, our ability to correctly perceive and understand the emotions and perspectives of others. The logic is beautiful, because when we learn to sit quietly and non-judgmentally with our own complex feelings, we become better equipped to recognize and hold space for that same complex humanity in others. We have done the inner work. When solitude turns into isolation, recognizing the shadow. But even peace has a shadow. The very same silence that heals can, in excess, harden into a wall of distance. This is the delicate balance. Psychologists call this unhealthy state pseudo-solitude, when being alone subtly shifts from a practice of healing and growth to a mechanism of hiding and avoidance. It's when you stop recharging and start retreating permanently. A 2021 study from UC Berkeley found that chronic, unwanted isolation activates the anterior cingulate cortex and the dorsal posterior insula, the same brain regions that light up in response to physical pain. The more we withdraw without the intention to return, the heavier and more painful life can feel. Solitude heals only when it remains a part of life, not a replacement for it. True solitude restores, isolation numbs. The late neuroscientist Dr. John Cacioppo, a leading expert on loneliness, described this as a vicious, self-reinforcing loop. The longer we retreat from social contact, the more threatening and exhausting it seems, making it progressively harder to return. That's why mindful solitude matters so much. It requires the periodic, gentle practice of turning inward and asking, am I using this time to recharge and understand myself, or am I using it to hide from my life and my responsibilities? The integration of silence and life, the dance of being. A whole human life needs both quiet and connection. We are not meant to be islands. The goal is not to build impenetrable walls around our heart, but to find doors, graceful, intentional ways back to the world that feel calm, honest, and authentically you. Even in solitude, we can foster connection. The oxytocin system, the neurochemical foundation of love, trust, and bonding, can be activated through practices of self-compassion. By being a kind and gentle friend to ourselves in our alone time, we nurture the very chemistry that connects us to others. Because solitude teaches us who we are. But connection reminds us why it matters to be who we are in the world. Psychologists call this mature state existential integration, the point where your rich, complex inner world finally finds a comfortable and authentic alignment with your outer life. A 2020 study in the Journal of Humanistic Psychology found that reflective solitude is a powerful catalyst for this, strengthening one's sense of purpose and emotional balance. It doesn't make life's challenges easier. It makes your experience of life make more sense. Coming home to yourself, the role of self-compassion. A crucial lesson solitude teaches is self-compassion. In the stark, honest quiet, we cannot escape the sound of our own inner critic. But in that same quiet, we can learn to answer it with a kinder, wiser voice. Dr. Kristin Neff's pioneering research has shown that self-compassion, treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a good friend, is a far more powerful motivator for growth than self-criticism. It helps us recover faster from stress and failure and builds profound resilience. When we stop demanding perfection from ourselves and others, we begin to heal in quieter, more lasting ways. Over time, solitude evolves. It becomes less of a refuge from the world and more of a teacher for navigating the world. It doesn't erase pain or difficulty, it transforms our relationship to them, turning raw suffering into nuanced understanding. As Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist Viktor Frankl wrote in Man's Search for Meaning, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. Maybe that is the ultimate gift of solitude. It helps us discover and refine our personal why. It forges the steady, unshakable center that remains, a guiding light even when the external how of life becomes stormy and difficult. The quiet gift of solitude, a conclusion. So if you've ever been called distant, quiet, hard to read, or too introverted, please know, you are not broken. You are not lacking. You are simply fluent in a different, more subtle language, the language of stillness. Solitude taught me that true peace doesn't mean building a fortress of isolation. It means achieving a state of integration, where all parts of you can coexist harmoniously. Time alone doesn't make you love people less. It helps you love them more authentically and generously, because you no longer need them to fill a void within you. You come to relationships from a place of abundance, not deficit. When you find a deep and lasting peace within yourself, you can meet others with true presence, without the desperate need for them to validate your existence or complete you. As the philosopher and poet Lao Tzu once said, "In solitude, the mind gains strength and learns to lean upon itself." And that is the fundamental truth about those who genuinely love to be alone. They are not escaping life. They are doing the necessary work to understand it, to process it, and to engage with it from a place of wholeness. Because solitude isn't where you lose yourself. It's where you finally, and completely, find yourself again. In the end, solitude isn't an escape from the world. It's the way we return to it, calmer, clearer, and more whole than we left it. So the next time life feels too loud, too sharp, too demanding, give yourself permission to pause. Without guilt. Sit with the silence. Listen to what it has to teach you. Because sometimes, in the space between the notes, that's where the real music is. That's where healing begins.